Welcome back, and this is Infection Prevention and Control on the Farm. We're going to be focusing on protecting worker health. And this is Module 4, where we're looking at specifically occupational safety. So we'll be focusing on best practice recommendations for engineering, controls, personal protective equipment, and of course the key element of competency-based training that gives workers confidence that they can perform different tasks safely without injury or exposure to infection. And so we're also going to be considering exposure to chemicals such as disinfectants or pesticides that are commonly used on the farm. So these are the learning objectives. We're going to be looking at the OSHA's policies as well as Washington's Labor and Industry, the DOSH guidelines or statutes here in Washington. We're going to outline task-specific zoonotic disease control methods, evaluate appropriateness of the different types of personal protective equipment, apply infection prevention policy. So again, this is the final module of our course, and so the ultimate goal here is to be able to develop an exposure control plan that actually optimizes your performance management. So that's an element of evaluating whether you've actually put into place different portions of the health and safety that are going to be effective. Basically, we have in Module 4 sections. So we're looking at the monitoring of outbreaks and recognized control procedures. Section 2, we're looking at general PPE, but we will drill down on more details about respiratory program, because again, I think that respirators are underutilized in the farming environment. Farm worker training, and again, continuing education. It's not just a one-shot deal where they get an orientation and everything else is on the job. We can have tailgate opportunities, brief meetings, even farm workers should form safety committees. These are the types of things that are very standard practice in all occupational workplaces. And then the Section 4, I hope to be talking about, again, monitoring and evaluation, looking at quality improvement and performance management. So when we're looking at monitoring of outbreaks and recommended control practices, again, all elements of occupational safety is true for the agricultural environments as well as animal farms and food processing plants. OSHA's General Duty Clause is universally enforced. So again, we're looking at the fact that employers are mandated to provide a safe and healthy workplace free of known hazards. And the scope of the occupational hazards, again, span everything. So it's chemical, physical, biological, because we're talking about zoonoses, but also the types of injuries that you have from heavy lifting, ergonomic hazards. There are lots of different components that have been identified by OSHA, recommending, especially since much of the work that farm workers are engaged in, these tasks are almost always completed outside. There's lots of different strategies for reducing exposures to noise and heat, and so there's a lot of guidelines within the OSHA.gov, and this is just one example of the water, rest, and shade to try to protect farm workers and require that they're given certain types of allowances for breaks and to be able to drink enough water. Again, employers should do a complete safety job analysis, so job hazard analysis or job safety analysis, to look at workplace hazards. So if an individual worker is responsible for several different tasks, each of those tasks should have a job hazard analysis, and they need to determine the appropriate types of PPE as well as look at personal protective equipment that might be required, as well as the availability of PPE right there on the job site. And I think that it's interesting. Several weeks ago, I was doing a training workshop with Boeing, and of course they manufacture aircraft, so it's quite a different industry. But I thought it was very good that the different types of equipment that they had that there for us to do the machine guarding and the different types of safety concerns that you have with fabrication machines and these heavy presses that make metal sheets into the aircraft, that they have right on the site of the machine. They have the job safety analysis, and they have all the different hazards listed, and then also the PPE was actually physically there. So quantities of the goggles, the face shields, the different types of specialized gloves, either cut-proof or leather gloves, the different types of PPE that the worker would have to put on. So this is a consideration for farm workers as well. Infection prevention plan development, of course, is not just a single shot. I mean, it's got different people would contribute to it, the individual workers, the supervisors, the different owners for these agricultural operations, veterinarians, public health specialists, even the primary health care physicians. These are all people that will have contributions to make when you're looking at infection prevention planning. And so there's the science that we have, your leadership teams, and you look for safety standards, different ones that are established by either the federal or the state governments. But you also need to consider the human behavior side. Of course, staff meetings, and you can actually discuss all the practical applications and even challenges in the workplace. Some of the PPE that might be recommended are really hot. I mean, so we wear these heavy rubber boots, different types of face shields, or even respirators, and they themselves are quite burdensome for the worker to wear, especially in hot weather or rainy weather. So some challenges will be mitigated, some will be recognized, and therefore you put in engineering controls or some other method to protect the workers. But the key thing is that we need to ensure worker competency and confidence that they understand the stepwise process, but emphasize why the PPE is necessary. Because again, all workers would like to go home healthy and in one piece to their families. And I think that this is what we say in all the different occupational safety courses that we teach. So, for example, if you look at basic safety strategies, hand hygiene, number one. So, key elements of infection prevention control, hand hygiene. Just taking that extra 2 minutes to actually wash their hands. It's the bubbles that actually mechanically remove the debris and bacteria and viruses from your hand, and then thorough rinsing and drying is important. I think that these hand rubs and different types of wipes, they just don't do as good a job. So proper hand hygiene is one of 5 things listed here. Appropriate use of personal protective equipment, environmental cleaning, housekeeping. Everywhere you look, those are very important, but particularly in the farm environment, because you have a lot of dust, you have the debris from the animals themselves. There are lots and lots of exposures here. If the soil isn't kept damp, you've got too much dust. So there's a lot of exposure to hazards, particularly focusing on the farms and agricultural processes. And then, of course, we're going back to the best practices related to prevention, so our IPC protocols, as well as monitoring. So this is the evaluation component that I'm mentioning. So we have specific evaluation and monitoring tools that we're going to be using to look at and monitor changes in your work environment when you have a new work practice put into place. Is it actually doing what you'd hoped it had? Are there fewer reportables? Are there fewer reported near misses for your workers? So these are important assessments. And so again, we're looking at, just again, using the example of hand hygiene or protecting yourself. Here's the idea of having glove and glove, meaning years ago, these gloves that we had were not very strong. They've actually improved them a lot. And so it's now a common practice to double glove. So you put one nitrile or latex glove inside another, so that when you have the contaminated glove on the outside and are in the process of removing it, you still have a clean gloved hand when you take the outer gloves off, or maybe they're big heavy rubber gloves or some other type of leather glove that you're using on the farm. So you have an inner layer that's clean still. So that means that you have the opportunity to take off some of the other contaminated PPE or possibly your respirator, face shield, without having to expose your hands. So these are all different types of steps that could be recommended. And I know that one of the things that we like to do is try make sure everybody knows how to safely take off gloves, making sure that they don't touch the outer contaminated surface. So this is just one method here that is been found to be very effective in helping people to learn. So practice it and demonstrate, have people actually commit time and do the taking off the gloves so they get some practice, because again, this is a very important step in protecting workers. I want to focus on, there are lots of best practice examples. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration does a good job in providing core elements and different types of tools that you can use. So these are all available online. I would recommend that you take a look. They have fact sheets. So these are, again, important ways of developing your standard operating procedures or SOPs. So you look at evaluating an incident that happens, so an exposure, a needle stick, someone's injured while handling the different animals for immunizations, any number of things that could happen with many of the different tasks that are performed on animal farms. And so then you have different ways of investigating and possibly preventing future incidents. Best practice examples on the labor and industry side for the state of Washington. Again, they have a lot of really excellent materials, and they have an agricultural worker safety handbook that we make available here with this course. I just want to give you some links to best practice guideline references, so just a few, because again, that this is where you're going to be working on your own after this class is completed. You've invested your 20 hours, you've gotten your continuing education units. These are the references we're hoping that you will continue to log into and find as good resources for future work that you'll be doing in evaluating problems or trying to solve issues that have happened on the farm. So here is your Module 4 first learning assignment, and easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay, so review the Center for Food Security and Public Health. So here's a website. Again, the Iowa State University, it has some excellent materials there. And what we have in mind for you to do, just like we've done in the other modules, is take time to review this website, take a look, and then post online your information about farm infection prevention control planning. So this is how you can see you coordinating and organizing planning sessions, even the timelines, those kinds of things that make it really real for your actual facility or one that is in your region. And then post it online so that everybody else can read it, but also comment on at least 2 other participants who have also offered ideas and of zoonotic disease transmission prevention. So it's a feedback kind of thing where you are looking and reading other people's posts as well as giving feedback to them to encourage them or share ideas that maybe they hadn't thought of. So that's Module 4, Section 1. I'm going to stop here and let you get online to complete it. Thanks very much, and see you in the next section.